This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Watch the greenbacks tumble.
Oh, man. We're on the air. And just a couple minutes ago, we weren't sure if we had a good connection from Missouri to Minnesota. Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked. Here we go. Your dial's set correctly to USAPrepares.com, and we're broadcasting twice daily from high atop the Missouri Ozark Mountain Studio A. And there's a link to all of your instructors on the website, USAPrepares.com. So if you need to refresh your memory, revisit something that you've heard on this broadcast, just click on USAPrepares.com. Converging threats are confronted daily by your instructors. I'm Vincent Finelli. Tom is producing the broadcast in Minnesota and currently in the classroom, discussing her personal research and medical research. Sharing her medical experiences with us is Dr. Julie Pennick, senior USAPrepares.com instructor, nurse practitioner, 3 times doctorate, and Dr. Pennick is a college instructor. And you can reach her at her website, pennickhealthcare.com, P-E-N-I-C-K, healthcare.com. It's always a pleasure to have Dr. Julie Pennick on the broadcast classroom with us. And you know, it comes to mind, Dr. Pennick would race into the studio at a very large station in Springfield, Missouri, just seconds before airtime. Sit down and go on the air. I was so impressed every time I saw her do that. She has an amazing ability to sit down all by herself at the microphone and just start broadcasting. Welcome, Dr. Julie Pennick.
Thanks, Vince. I think that was a backhanded compliment to say that I can sit down and BS pretty quickly.
Actually, no, it wasn't backhanded. No, seriously.
I think my mind is so filled with so many facts and minutia that it is pretty easy to just pop into the station at the last minute and be able to speak somewhat articulately on most topics that you throw at me.
Well, I was thinking about when you do your show. I mean, you just run in and there you are. I mean, you're on a very tight schedule. You get ready. The calls are there. Everything's all lined up, and you just off you go. I mean, no notes, nothing.
And it's all in my head, right? I'm somewhat of a geek in that I have been known to spend a perfectly good weekend out on PubMed or sites like that, just researching about healthcare issues. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, it was not a backhanded compliment. It was a compliment because I'm so impressed when I see you do that. It's really neat. Well,
thanks.
Dr. Pennick, what was that?
I said thank you.
I was. Oh, okay. You're welcome. Last night we were chatting. I was coming back from a crime syndicate meeting. I'm an elected committee man in our little county. So I was coming back from this meeting, and I was thinking about some of the things that have happened, and I wanted to chat with you about it. So I picked up the phone and we were talking. There in Vermont this month, a 2-headed calf was born, about 75 pounds, 2 heads, 2 snouts, 1 brain. Both heads moo, both heads eat, and this calf appears to be very, very healthy. But it's rare. And in New Zealand, a calf was born with 8 legs, 4 ears, 2 bodies, 1 head, and it was stillborn. And then in January of 2011, there was a 2-headed calf born in Georgia, United States. And then in 2012, there was a 6-legged cow born in Switzerland. And I remember seeing after Chernobyl, after the nuclear catastrophe in Chernobyl, that an 8-legged horse was born. So Fukushima went off in March of 2011. Chernobyl went off in 1986. And I guess my question is, Dr. Pennick, do you think there's a possibility that these things can be related, or are these just coincidences? Or what do you think?
So that would be an incidence of deductive or inductive reasoning. Doesn't really matter which. The logical flow of the statements that you just made would facilitate one coming to the same conclusion. You absolutely would have to consider that the Fukushima meltdown and the release of high levels of radioactivity into both the local, and because we know that radioactivity is not bound by barrier beyond the local region, absolutely could have an impact on the genetic code and cellular division when it comes to cases of reproduction, right? And so, yes, to answer your question, one would have to consider that in the realm of possibility. And if you look at the facts and you correlate the Chernobyl meltdown with the resultant cases that you cited, and then the Fukushima meltdown and the resultant cases that you cited, one would have to suggest that there at least is the plausibility to accept that as a cause and effect relationship. Not proven scientifically, but in the world of logic, one would have to be able to make that corollary.
Okay. And let me ask you, in your life, are you concerned about the increased radioactive levels in our atmosphere, in the ocean, Pacific Ocean mostly, but all the oceans are connected, and now on the ground contaminating our food supply? Are you concerned about that?
I would say that I am ever vigilant and mindful and concerned about the high levels of toxins in our environment, of which the radioactive results of Fukushima is a part of. So the answer to that on the surface would be absolutely yes. I think what we see oftentimes is the cumulative effects of multiple layers and multiple dimensions of environmental toxicities that come into play for birth defects such as you, deformities such as you mentioned. And that's on a global scale for all humankind. I have that concern. For me personally, understanding that those are risks that I face every day, I'm very proactive in my healthcare choices, and I do routine activities, including taking presently iodine supplementation, because one of the cures for radiation poisoning is to treat with iodine supplementation. So when I bring it down to the central person of myself or my loved ones, I have less of a concern because I am equipped with the knowledge, skills, and abilities to hedge my bets against some of that, and I am proactive in taking steps for that. I would love for the masses at large to be educated on the simple steps that they should or could be taking for themselves as well when they realize that they navigate, as you know, that because I've talked at many of the USA Prepares Expos about the sea of toxins that the human body interfaces with on a daily basis.
Dr. Pennick, you're talking about you're taking proactive steps. Can you share some of those with us? And I'm thinking about the fluoride iodine relationship and connection. Is the fluoride in our water causing us, well, let's go with this first. Is the fluoride in our water preventing the uptake of iodine in our bodies, which would help prevent some of the contamination effects from radiation in our bodies? Is fluoride interfering with that?
I believe that there is clear and convincing evidence based on both research and publications in peer-reviewed journals, as well as an understanding of, think back to chemistry and the table of elements, that both fluoride and chloride and iodide or iodine are all in the category called halogens. They have different molecular weights. And so if chloride or fluoride, because your question is specifically about fluoride, if fluoride gets to the receptor site where iodine is supposed to bind, because of its molecular weight issues compared to iodine, fluoride absolutely will occupy the iodine receptor sites, which does not allow the human organism to be able to uptake and utilize iodine, which is absolutely essential for the manufacture of thyroid hormone. So, how does one know that they need to take precautions against that? A great amount of your iodine in your body has a relationship with protein molecules. And so there's a blood test called the protein-bound iodine level that people can do. You can also do a 24-hour urine collection after taking or ingesting a known dose of iodine. And then you collect the urine that an individual excretes for the next 24 hours, and you measure the amount of iodine they put out as compared to the amount of iodine that they took in, and you would know that whether or not an individual was deficient in iodine, right? And so there are some other blood tests that one would probably want to take along with that, thyroid-stimulating hormone, T3, which is one of the forms of thyroid hormone in the body, and T4. And so the body also has a mechanism that when you take in iodine, as long as it's not excessive amount, if you don't need it to do the work in the body that it's designed to do, which I said one of the primary things is manufacture of thyroid hormone, the body will eliminate above and beyond what its need is. And so those are the ways that you would do that. I think for the most part, taking a small dose of an iodine supplement in the presence of normal kidney function, the ability to excrete what one does not need.
That's Dr. Julie Pennick is with us, and we're talking about radioactivity. We're talking about Chernobyl. We're talking about Fukushima. And we're talking about animals that have been born with multiple heads. We talked about a two-headed calf born in Vermont this month. We talked about a calf born in New Zealand with 8 legs, 4 ears, 2 bodies, 1 head who was stillborn. We talked about in January 2011, there was a 2-headed calf born in Georgia, United States. And we talked about in 2012, a 6-legged cow born in Switzerland. And our question is, could this be related to radioactivity in our environment? And the answer is yes. Now, Dr. Julie Pennick is with us, and she suggested that, or she mentioned that she is taking proactive steps to remain healthy in this environment, this sea of toxins, as she teaches us at the USA Prepares Get Prepared Expos. So before we went to break, Dr. Pennick, you're talking about small doses of iodine. Could you share an overview with that with us, because we got cut off just before the break?
Yeah, I all of a sudden I wasn't quite sure what was going on. So what I said was, in an attempt to allow iodine to be able to bind to the receptor sites in the body that it's supposed to, if you have adequate amounts of iodine ingested, either through dietary nutritional sources, which is hard to do because unless you live in coastal regions where you have access to fresh seafoods that are high in iodine that they pick up into their bodies from the sea, or coastal areas where foods are grown in the soils that still have exposure to some form of or level of seawater where they're high in iodine, in the Midwest, foods that are grown here have less iodine in them because the soil has less iodine to contribute. So the thought then becomes taking iodine from outside the body is probably something that one would want to investigate, because the body needs that to be able to bind to the iodine sites to keep fluoride and chlorine from binding there. And so I often talk about that concept with the people that I see in my practice. There are ways to measure through either blood test, protein by iodine, or a 24-hour urine collection after a known quantity of iodine is ingested to see if a person is deficient. And certainly iodine deficiency states can lead to a lot of problems as far as health goes. You talk about those observed in the animal population as far as deformities, birth deformities. And in the human, what we see often, because iodine is one of the two major constituents for the manufacture of thyroid hormone, iodine deficiency then manifests as symptoms of hypothyroidism, or inability to manufacture enough thyroid hormone to meet the demands of the body. Did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. And of course, it leads to another question, which is, I remember salt, common table salt, being sold as in two versions. One is plain table salt, and the other was iodized table salt. So if we consume iodized table salt, will we be, in effect, supplementing with enough iodine with just regular salting of our foods, not over-salting?
No. It was a good thought. Iodine was added to salt a few decades ago. I believe it was in about the 50s, 60s, where school children were observed to be developing goiters, which was believed to be due to iodine deficiency. And so school-age children at that time, for which my oldest sibling received iodine tablets in the public school system. And they saw a decreased incidence of goiters. And, you know, one of the problems with hypothyroidism is blunted mental activity, inability to think, focus, concentrate. It's one of the reasons we check babies at birth for acquired cretinism, which is a form of a thyroid challenge. And so I think, and I wasn't around then, or very young then, I wasn't certainly at the level of understanding that I am now, one of the thoughts was there might be a better way to reach the masses rather than giving iodine tablets to school-age children. That wasn't really taking care of adult populations with problems. So I think the thought was, let's iodize salt. It is an element that many people use when they cook, and so they add iodine to table salt. Here's the dilemma. We'll get to that when we get back
Dr.
from
Pennick, hold that thought. We're going into another break. We have no shortage of commercials here on USAPrepares.com. When we come back, let's talk about that. Dr. Julie Pennick. Plus, we've got Dr. Julie Pennick with us, and it's pennickhealthcare.com if you'd like to go to her website. And Dr. Pennick is a 3-time PhD. She's a nurse practitioner. She's a college instructor training nurses and medical to be professionals at the college level. Dr. Pennick, before we get back to iodine and salt and the good thought, good intentions of that, we have Mike on the phone. Mike from Tennessee, you're on with Dr. Julie Pennick and me, Vin Finelli.
Good morning, Vincent. Good morning, Dr. Pennick. Real quick, I just wanted to mention that shortly after the explosion in Fukushima, I was actually, at that time, a guest of the Henning Hilton, and I had requested potassium iodate as a prophylactic to prevent exposure from the potential of a cesium-137 exposure. And the nurse on duty, well, she referred me to the doctor, and the next day I met with the doctor, and it was soon apparent that by the lack of knowledge of the doctor that this was not an MD, but unfortunately it was a psychiatrist. And she was referred to me because they thought that I was a complete lunatic. And I tried to explain to her about Fukushima, which she had no knowledge. I tried to explain how the radioactive material can be transported through the jet stream and via water and animals and various types of contamination can occur quite easily. And I spoke of the history of the Chernobyl radiation being deposited in this country, which she had absolutely no knowledge of. And she was more than happy to provide me with psycho drugs. You know, anything that I wanted was available to me, but not anything to protect me from radioactive fallout, which, of course, I chose to accept nothing from her. But if there's anything that you might be aware of that people on the other side of the wire might be able to access in various forms that would protect them, because there are people, unfortunately, railroaded and in our society that do not have access to these types of preventatives to protect themselves.
Mike, that is a great comment, and I am sorry that you fell victim to a healthcare professional that had a lack of knowledge on this keenly important topic as it related specifically to you and your exposure. So let me tell you what my clients and I experienced after Fukushima. There are a couple of products that routinely my clients take who have been found to be iodine deficient just on a health assessment, not because of exposure issues. One of those products is a product called iodoral. And so I had patients who'd been on that for a few years. It became virtually impossible to get iodoral at our local health food stores who had carried it for some decades, I will say. And once they were able to start getting stock, people were buying it up and selling it on eBay and making good profit at it because people overseas who had some knowledge were making an attempt to get it. And so when they started getting adequate supply, I won't say adequate, when they started getting supplies back from the manufacturer, because the manufacturers also responded to the call from across the ocean to send supplies. My patients, my clients reported to me that they could no longer just walk into the health food store and purchase a bottle of iodoral. They had to ask for it, and they had to give an explanation to the staff at the health food store why they were on it, how long they had been on it, and what they needed it for. My health food stores were protecting my people to make sure that people who needed it because it was part of their current health treatment plan could get it, and they were not just people buying it up to sell it out on eBay. And so iodoral, and I don't recall the manufacturer, but I think I have a bottle in my bag because I told you I use it myself. Iodoral is a product. Standard Process is a manufacturer who has a product called prolamine, which is a potassium iodide, which is a great form to supplement when you're looking to offset the problems associated with radioactive radiation poisoning. And I don't have my bottle handy. I think Optimox is the manufacturer for the iodoral product. Oh, never mind. I do have my bottle. The manufacturer, Optimox Corporation in Torrance, California, is the manufacturer for iodoral, which is a potassium iodine combination supplement, and prolamine is the same thing, manufactured by Standard Process, and I don't know where Standard Process is headquartered out. So anybody listening who doesn't have a local health food store, you can Google those products, and now they're readily available again in the market. But, Mike, I thank you for bringing that topic up, because there are so many people who just fall victim to poor information that suggests that we may not have any sequelae to the Fukushima meltdown, which absolutely does not stand up to the scrutiny of fact-finding and truth.
One last question real quick, if we have a moment. Naston iodine is something that's just been recently mentioned on another show on this GCN station. Any information about that? I think it's spelled Nastion.
What was it called, Mike? I'm sorry.
Naston, I believe that's how it's pronounced. It starts with the letter N, Naston, I believe.
I'm not familiar with that product.
It's Nascent, Nascent. I'll forward the information to
To Vince?
Vincent, right now, it's something that is new, and it's being pushed on another program on GCN. I just thought I would just see if there was any information else about that as a prophylactic to be used to protect yourself.
Absolutely. I want to make a disclaimer here. I have no financial connection to the two products that I recommended. They just happen to be products that are readily available in my market and that my clients can access. I would be looking forward to reviewing the information about the product that's being promoted on another program. I will tell you that I shy away from products that are sold in a multi-level marketing schema because the product is not where the money flows. The product flows to the people selling. I mean, the money flows to the people in the multi-level scheme.
Dr. Pennock, I've got a question while we have Mike on the line. Mike, we discussed over the weekend your concern about the symptoms of meningitis. Would you like to share that with Dr. Pennock?
Yes, I actually, my wife and I have virtually not been to a doctor in almost 10 years.
Congratulations.
We take care of ourselves through nutrition. We're concerned with health care, not disease management, which is what Obamacare is all about, is once you get sick, we've got a doctor and a pill for you. We take the steps we need to eat healthy and supplement and protect ourselves. Well, this weekend, my wife developed a low-grade fever of about 100, 101, neck aches, headaches, severe headaches, and throwing up. And she was feeling just terrible. And so I'm on the computer because I can't find my book of natural cures and remedies and, trying to put some formulation together as to what's the problem, do my own diagnosis. So I find the information's tending to lead towards meningitis. And because I was not prepared, I reached out to some friends, including Vinny, to see if, in the collective group that I have, is there any knowledge out there that I'm missing, that I'm overlooking? And one of the things I realize is that if no matter how much you prepare, you're going to have some things come up, and depending on how you react or not react will determine the person's ability to survive that. And fortunately, with a little bit further research and talking to Chief Cloudpiler, who confirmed some things for me, this was in fact something like a flu-type bug and not a meningitis. And, of course, at the same time, I had other friends whose family had these similar symptoms, which turned out to be a salmonella, which seems to be all over the country now, which I'm looking at the fact, before you invade, you want to soften the target. And what better way to soften the target than to release something in the environment to create a salmonella-type bioweapon in order to bring people to their knees and to the beds virtually, because my wife had no exposure to anything that would have caused this. And nobody else around her in her office, the only place she goes outside of the farm, no place did anybody else have this. It was kind of odd, but she did get better and doing quite well now. But I'm just kind of concerned about even people like myself who's been involved in preparedness for 30-something years. I can find that I have chinks in my armor and weak spots that if we're not prepared for, we can be at a disadvantage.
Couple of comments there, Mike. You correlated her presenting symptoms with meningitis. Whether or not it was anything that ends in itis is suggestive of an inflammatory process. An inflammatory process is the natural response of the body to any invading organism. So clearly she had an itis or an inflammatory response, which is a sign of a healthy immune system doing what it's supposed to do.
And that was the information. That was what Chief Cloudpiler reasserted. I kind of knew this, but I'd forgotten it. But it's the body's natural ability to fight off invasion, and it's doing its job. And because it was a low-grade fever, that was healthy and not harmful. And, the idea to let it kind of run its course a little bit was beneficial, whereas if it had been a high-grade fever, then that's a different situation altogether.
Well, I agree with Chief Cloudpiler. I will tell you that one of my favorite tools in my armamentarium to support a healthy anti-inflammatory immune response to any assault on the human body is high-dose proteolytic enzyme therapy. You can Google that, and I would suggest that people listening understand what sources of high-dose proteolytic enzyme therapy are. Proteolytic enzymes have been demonstrated in the biochemistry research to enhance the production of alpha-macroglobulin 2, which y'all don't really need to understand at that level, but that boosts the immune system. High-dose proteolytic therapy has been shown to arrest metastases of invading cancerous cells and to reduce tumor size in many bench studies conducted. So high-dose proteolytic enzyme therapy, get you a stockpile and keep it on the farm.
Class, Dr. Julie Penix at the front of the classroom. She's going to be with us for the next hour. And also with us on the phone is Mike Parsons. You know him as Mike from Tennessee. If you've been to the Get Prepared Expos, you've seen Mike. He is a pilot, a farmer, a USAPreparedness.com instructor, and an Minha medicine man. Mike, you and Dr. Pennick and I were talking about proteolytic enzyme therapy, detoxification. Dr. Pennick, please continue.
Oh, well, and so my patients and I love proteolytic enzyme therapy. I carry a product that we use a lot, but it's certainly not the only product available. Proteolytic enzyme nourishes the immune system, feeds the immune system, and helps the body with decreasing. Here's the problem with taking anti-inflammatory drugs. The inflammatory process has two phases. It has the response phase, and then it has the healing phase. Non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs or medications shut down the entire inflammatory response, which means they delay healing because they shut down the inflammatory response phase 1, which is going towards the offending agent, and they shut down phase 2, which is the healing phase. Proteolytic enzymes do not shut down the healing phase, and they support the immune system to do its work in the first phase of appropriately responding to the offending agent. And so the listener should get familiar with the concept of proteolytic enzyme therapy and look to nature. Some herbs are naturally high in anti-inflammatory properties. I love enzyme therapy. That's proteolytic enzyme therapy because enzymes are the only nutritional product that do not require your body to do anything. They carry their own work unit value, and they can get across an incompetent digestive system. And since over-the-counter medications for GERD, reflux are one of the number one selling drugs in the country, I would suggest that the vast majority of the listening audience do not have a competent digestive system.
So what do we do, Dr. Pennick?
White willow, right? For those of you who are wildcrafters, white willow is high in natural salicylic acid. That's powerfully anti-inflammatory, right? It's not an enzyme, but it is powerfully anti-inflammatory, and it does not shut down the healing phase like the synthetic drugs do. Protease, Protease, protease is what you would find on the label when you're looking for an enzyme product. Look for something that has high protease units or value on it. The higher, the better.
Would this be similar to an analgesic type of product?
It absolutely can relieve pain because part of the inflammatory response is kicking off the arachidonic acid cascade and the production of prostaglandins, which are pro-pain producing. In fact, that is the level at which your nonsteroidal anti-inflammatory drugs work. They interrupt that at that level.
I understand part of the body's natural reaction is to actually get you off your feet to slow you down so it can heal itself, and creation of pain is part of its natural mechanism.
Right. Exactly. It's a pain is the body's way of communicating to the brain saying, there's something not right here. You need to figure it out, and let's get it fixed. Pain is a powerful motivator for change, whether that's in the physical body or the spiritual, emotional body.
Dr. Pennock, are you suggesting that with this proteolytic enzyme therapy that we minimize our meat consumption and increase our vegetable consumption?
No, not at all.
Okay.
I'm a meat eater. I'm a carnivore girl.
Dr. Julie Pennock's with us. She'll be with us for the next hour. I've got some questions about cancer, and I've got some questions back to iodine. Mike Parsons, thank you so much for joining us, Mike from Tennessee. Dr. Julie Pennock and I will be right back after the top of the hour news and commercials. We're going to talk about cancer. We're going to talk about Obamacare. We're going to talk about iodine. And what about eating organ meats and age spots? We'll be right back.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Watch the greenbacks tumble.
Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Hour number 2 of USAPrepares.com. Dr. Julie Pennock is with us. PennockHealthcare.com. P-E-N-I-C-K, healthcare.com. Springfield, Missouri. And Dr. Pennock is a broadcaster, and she's been on the air many, many years in Springfield, Missouri, at a very powerful radio station. And she does a great job, has a very, very loyal following. And she is a college instructor at in Springfield, Missouri, where she teaches people the skills of nursing and modern medicine. Dr. Pennock is with us, and I'm just delighted that you're with us. Dr. Pennock, during the break, I was reading a post about facial cream. And this woman had applied facial cream to her face, and she became blistered and swollen. And it took 6 months of steroid treatment to help her recover. Now, I'm not really, I don't really want to discuss the specifics of that case. But what I would like to discuss with you is how we should be concerned about what we apply to our skin, because what we apply to our skin is absorbed through our skin into our bodies. So, Dr. Pennock, what should we be concerned with regarding applying hand cream, facial cream, sunscreens, and those kinds of chemicals to our bodies? What are your thoughts on that?
I like the term that you choose, chemical. There are so many petrochemical ingredients in the large-scale commercially available skincare, personal hygiene, facial products. I don't have it in front of me. I have a file that says the top 10 list of ingredients never to put on your skin. Have people just take a look at the label of a lot of their skincare products or their deodorants and see if it contains propylene glycol. Propylene glycol happens to be the same ingredient in antifreeze for your car. So why anyone would put that chemical on their skin? I mean, we had a case here in Springfield, right, Vin, where a woman killed her husband, her son, and tried to kill her other daughter by sneaking antifreeze in their drinks.
Right.
So if you ingest it and it can kill you, if you perpetually use it on your skin, you are ingesting it because the skin is the largest absorptive surface of the body. And so there are several other ingredients in addition to propylene glycol that people should look for. So there are a wide range of companies that manufacture and produce personal hygiene products, hair care products, antiperspirants, deodorants, cosmetics that do not contain any of those chemicals on the top 10 list of things you should avoid putting on your skin. And so our listeners should be avid researchers and investigate safe products for themselves. Not only safe for them, but also considered environmentally friendly.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things that comes up is dishwashing liquid. You know, the common plastic bottle that we have on our kitchen counters, and we squirt it on dishes, and we wash the dishes. Isn't that something that contains estrogen-like compounds that increase our weight just by the contact of dishwashing detergent and liquid through our hands?
Absolutely. Not just dishwashing liquid or hand soaps, or there are so many chemicals out there that a person either comes in contact with their skin or ingests, like drinking bottled water. I won't bash any particular brand of bottled water, but bottled water like you buy at the grocery store or the convenience store. They contain PCBs or polycarbon molecules that are known or referred to in healthcare realms as xeno, spelled Xeno, xenoestrogens. And what they do is they mimic estrogen-like activity and disrupt normal feedback mechanisms for hormone systems in the body. So we refer to those as endocrine, because endocrine refers to the hormone system in the body. We refer to those xenoestrogens as endocrine disruptors. And so they lead to health symptomatology that oftentimes healthcare practitioners may not even go looking at the source of exposure that the individual has, because in many practices, and even in my practice, natural, the temptation is to give a substance to combat or suppress the symptom rather than looking at the causation and removing the stressor. And so sometimes I'm guilty of choosing a natural product or an herb or an enzyme to treat a symptom when I should always be looking for the underlying causing factor.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things that you're talking about is bisphenol A, or BPA, and BPA is in these plastic bottles. And what about those? It's so easy, Dr. Pennock, to do this. Let's have some emergency water, and we'll put it in the trunk of our car, or let's put it behind the seat in a little box so it doesn't roll around. These bottles of plastic bottles of water. Those plastic bottles get hot in the summertime, hot in the trunk, hot in the cab of our car, and the plastic is even further released at a greater rate into the water, dissolved by the water, carried by the water, and then we consume even more of it.
Yeah, and most people aren't familiar with that concept. I shudder when I see young or even old moms pull out a plastic water bottle from the diaper bag to mix the baby's formula with.
Mm-hmm.
They have no idea what they're doing. They think they're doing the right thing, right?
Yes, of course.
But they have no idea because they've not been educated to the ills that can be associated with that. But in essence, they are dosing their babies with xenoestrogenic activity molecules that are disrupting the baby's hormone system. Now, you think about that, and you think about what we talked about, fluoride, and most municipalities have fluoridation in their water system, which we already talked about disrupts the proper function of the thyroid hormone system. And we look at the standard American diet and we wonder why we have a pediatric or a childhood obesity epidemic in this country.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And
well, maybe you don't wonder about it. I don't wonder about it. I know where a lot of that comes from.
Dr. Pennock, it is almost impossible to get fluoride out of a municipal water supply. I mean, I've tried for over a year in Springfield, And those who have gone on that bandwagon have paid a price, a serious price. I mean, I've called out the city manager. I mean, I've printed up bumper stickers, and it's impossible. These guys are so entrenched.
They are so entrenched. You're not going to be successful. And Ben, you probably have a little more knowledge on this than I do. Yeah, a lot of people do like commercially available filtration systems, like you buy at your local department store or whatever, Brita or Zero Water. It's my understanding that, and most of those use charcoal filtration systems, they can filter out the chlorine, but they cannot filter out the fluoride. Is that correct?
That's correct. And we, at our farmhouse, we use the Berkey water filter. And I would say most of our instructors have them. But if you have fluoride in your water, you'll need to have what's called a post filter. So you can add the post filter to the activated carbon or charcoal filter of your Berkey water filter, and it will remove most of the fluoride. So it's a two-step filtration. Now, there are filter systems that do it all in one, except what happens is you don't have the extra capacity filtration of the fluoride. The fluoride filter is about the same size as the activated carbon filter. So I think, in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, that the Berkey system is the best. Our children have it, and if they're drinking fluoridated water, they have the fluoride post filter on their Berkey water systems. Now, class, I don't want you to think this is a commercial. This is just what I do. And really, most of our instructors, if not, well, I would say absolutely most of them, have water filtered with Berkey, or they are on well water. Seriously. So I'm with you, and I happen to like that particular product that I just mentioned. You know, I've said this, I don't think I've said it on the air, but I haven't seen anyone who has tried a Berkey water filter in their home, whether they have well water or city water, who can go back to drinking unfiltered water once they try it. And what happens is so many people say, can I have some lemon in that water because I don't like the taste of the water. They're not talking about Berkey water. They're talking about tap water, municipal water. They want to mask the taste, the odor of the chlorine. They don't like it, so they're masking it, but it's still there. It's still there. But when they drink water that's filtered through a charcoal carbon filtration system, it's different. They'll say, this really tastes good. It's the same water. And here's what's happening. Here's what's happening. Dr. Pennick, I have a meetup every Monday night at Ziggy's. And I said to on the radio, even when I was on a station in Springfield, Missouri, I said, why don't you bring your own beverage to the restaurant and tell them that you're doing that because you don't want to drink fluoridated water. And ultimately that revenue loss from the restaurant, from selling you iced tea and coffee and so forth, will get back to the city, because the restaurants will complain of lost revenue, and maybe they'll take the fluoride out. We've tried every approach, but what's happening at our meetups is our class is bringing their own beverages because they don't want fluoride. Dr. Julie Pennick and I will be right back. I'd like to talk about iodine. What kind of dose should be given for women who are pregnant? That's a call that came into the farm today during the broadcast. Dr. Julie Pennick, PennickHealthcare.com. Dr. Julie Pennick's with us in the classroom. Dr. Pennick, I want to share something with you. We get a lot of calls here at the farmhouse, and I'm broadcasting from the farm today. And Mrs. Finelli came in, and she said she got a call from a person asking about the dosage of iodine for a pregnant woman. And let's answer that. But I also want to say that there are a whole bunch of people going to Dr. Shealy's training session for this week, and they're calling the farm asking, how do I get there? I'm in my car. I'm lost. It's very interesting. It's very interesting the calls that we get here at the farm. But this one was about a dose, an iodine dose for a pregnant woman. What do you recommend in that case?
I don't. and I'm going to tell you why. I don't recommend dosages of iodine, specific dosages of iodine for any client, including those that I work with in my practice, unless I have conducted a test to know their current deficiency state. And then I make recommendations based on their laboratory test findings of what dosage is appropriate for them. So I can't make a blanket statement, and I wouldn't make a blanket statement about what dose of iodine is appropriate for a person who's pregnant. The answer to that question would be if that individual wants to know what dose is appropriate for them, because their physiology is different. You see, that's one of the fundamental flaws of pharmacologic mechanisms of prescribing. They recommend based on the average individual. Well, I don't know about you, Vince Finelli, but I am certainly not an average individual. And therefore, I
not
won't. I don't want.
Not in any way,
shape, or form, you are correct. I would never allow anybody to recommend to me what is appropriate for the average individual, because that's not my physiology. So any decisions I make based that would have to be based on testing for that individual.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Dr. Pennick, yes. And Dr. Pennick, if I had to describe you, I would say that you idle at 120 miles an hour.
Yeah, that might be shortchanging me a little, Vince.
I have not seen you do this, but you and I, well, since it's in the past, you have been on this broadcast with me on a cell phone at 70 miles an hour, not exceeding the speed limit, but at 70 miles an hour doing this broadcast with me. Is that true?
That is true. That is absolutely true. Yeah, so, traveling down probably either 60 east, 63 south, or 55, 60 east and 55 south, headed to visit my folks or my family down in Louisiana. Yeah, I've done that many a time.
And we were talking about some dangerous chemicals, and let's just go through some of these so that our class knows. Some of the most dangerous chemicals in your household right now, air fresheners. Now, I don't understand why we need air fresheners. Do you, Dr. Pennick?
No. No. If you want to get rid of this, well, here, now I'm just having a conversation with a colleague of mine here over where we teach together on campus. In the presence of normal function, there should be no odor associated with urine or fecal material. So if when you go to the bathroom stinks, that's a health problem, right? Mm-hmm. Putting an air freshener in the air that you're going to breathe into your lungs is further detrimental to your health. And if you want to get rid of the smell, just strike a match and the sulfur smell will overtake it, right? It's the less caustic to your body.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Here's another one, ammonia. You know, we use a lot of, we'll use ammonia in the household as a cleaning agent. It hurts your eyes, it burns your eyes, and that's just another thing in the house that is detrimental. What are your thoughts on ammonia?
I certainly have, over the years, had numerous patients overcome by the fumes associated with ammonia just in routine cleaning tasks. I will tell you that the majority of the people who were overcome and overtaken by that were not necessarily the individuals I would say were at the lowest levels of health. But, when you're doing spring cleaning, which I'm not familiar with because I don't really do that, but I have patients who do. They have OCD, right? You have to get outside and breathe in fresh air. You're going to end up with a chemical pneumonitis.
Dr. Pennick, when we come back, let's talk about bleach, chlorine bleach, and mixing that with ammonia and how deadly that can be. We'll be right back. I always have fun when Dr. Julie Pennick's in the broadcast classroom with us. Dr. Pennick, we were talking about some of these chemicals that are so dangerous in our everyday lives, and some of them we can't control because we we may have a job where the cleaning people will come in and use these products without the knowledge of how dangerous they are. And that's why I thought we should mention a few of these things. My mom, back in the 1960s, was doing some house cleaning, and she mixed ammonia and bleach, and it almost killed her. The fumes can be very deadly. So we've got ammonia and we've got chlorine bleach. Back in World War I, chlorine was used to kill the enemy, chlorine gas.
There was a breakdown at a Dow chemical plant in a township outside of New Orleans, about 90 miles away. And my cousin, who is a little bit older than me, and we're in our 50s now, and her husband were driving by on the river road when the breach in the vat of the chemical storage occurred, and they got caught in a cloud of chlorine. I think it was ammonia chloride cloud, and they almost died. They had to abandon their car and crawl to get to the edge of where the cloud was so that they could breathe. So, yeah, it's very dangerous.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then let me just mention a few of these others just so our class will know. Carpet and upholstery shampoos are dangerous. Dishwashing detergents. It's a major cause of child poisoning. So, Dr. Pennick, the times that you have your dishwasher running and you've got this dishwashing detergent in there, but yet there's still some residue of, it doesn't get fully dissolved in the water. Maybe the water's not hot enough, and there are deposits, and you can feel this crusty dishwashing detergent still on the plates. I advocate absolutely.
That just sounds nasty, crusty residue.
It's this white powder. We've seen it. It is. Right.
And you see it particularly on glasses, cups, right? You can see that really well when it's a clear glass. And so you do see that residue. And so people don't realize if you pour your liquids that you're consuming in there, where does that chemical go?
Down the hatch.
Into your liquid and then into you, right? So I don't think people would open up their dishwasher and drink the water from the bottom of that. Do you?
No, not on a routine basis. No.
Okay, well, they need to realize that's what they're doing if they're not using the right chemicals in their dishwasher.
Right. And so, class, I would advocate, and I'll ask Dr. Pennick her opinion, but if you do that, I would advocate rinsing or washing again without any detergent to make sure those chemicals are not on your dishes. And I would advocate, touching the dishes to see if they're, if you have multicolored dishes to see if you have and feel if you have that residue of the detergents on your plates. And if so, wash them again and, make sure you get that off. Don't consume it. And you're in total agreement with that, I assume?
Yeah, or choose a safe product, right?
Yeah, what would that be?
I oftentimes just run my dishwasher on high temp so that it's the steam and the hot water. And because I do that, so I remember when there were no dishwashers because I'm that old. And the early dishwashers back in the 80s, we had to wash all the dishes before we put them in the dishwasher because they didn't get clean. Right. So I'm used to pre-washing my dishes before they go in the dishwasher anyway. And that's so I feel comfortable and confident that just running it on high temp so that it steams in there is adequate. To be perfectly honest, because that's the way I approach it, I really haven't investigated sources of safe products for the dishwasher. Are you familiar with any you can share with me?
No, actually I can't, because what we do is we do exactly what you do. We wash our dishes in the sink first with hot water, and we get off the food, and then we use a very, very small amount of dishwashing detergent, very small, way, way below the recommended amount for many reasons. One, we're concerned about having those chemicals. Well, they end up in our septic system, and then they end up in the, in the soil and in the property. So we just don't want chemicals that we can avoid.
So I did have a couple of thoughts along those lines. We sometimes use organic apple cider vinegar mixed with some good quality water and use that as a spray to clean our vegetables. I would imagine you could put a small amount of organic apple cider vinegar in the dishwasher if you wanted an additional layer of cleansing. You do that?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Well, why didn't you share that without me needing to prompt you on that, Mr. Finelli? Are you trying to hold out on me and the listening audience here? What's the deal? As for me and my house, we're going to do the right thing and be sick. But you, Dr. Pennick, and my listening audience, well, forget ya.
Well, we don't do it all the time.
Okay.
So it's not a regular routine thing. For the routine operation, it's very little of the commercial dishwashing detergent, that white powdery stuff. But we don't use any of those agents for drying agents. We just use the hot water and the steam. So we do something very similar to what you do, except we do use a little bit of the dishwashing powdered detergent, but very, very little. I'm talking about, maybe a quarter of a teaspoon. Very, very little.
Are you familiar with Miracle 2 products?
No.
There is, and I don't, you can Google Miracle 2. Miracle 2 soaps made through a saponification process. I know you're a pre-med, so you understand that, and chemistry majors would understand that. But the nice thing about the Miracle 2 products are they are also layered with eloptic prayer. And so I bet you could use a few drops of Miracle 2 soap. Even though it's a liquid, a couple of drops of that in the dishwasher might be an amazing thing to do. You can also use it to clean your clothes. And they also make a product called the Miracle 2 Neutralizer, which is a liquid that would be safe to put in the dishwasher.
Okay. I'm going to contact them right after the broadcast. I found the website that, as you were describing it, and we'll talk to them, and we'll do some experimentation. And we'll report. And how about this? How about the next time you're on with us, we'll report what we found.
Great. Love it.
Yeah. By the way, Dr. Pennick, there have been many suggestions made during this broadcast that you have your own show right here on GCN.
You're kidding, right?
No, I'm not.
Oh, I don't know if the broad listening audience could take me on a routine basis. I think God intended that to be doled out little at a time.
Well, I'll tell you what.
I could probably name you a bunch of people that would support my statement there. My husband of 29 years would probably agree with that.
Well, I'll tell you. Let's talk after the broadcast, and if you want to pursue it, let me know, and I'll see if I can help you make that happen. I'm serious. There are a lot of people who really love what you have to say. And I wanted to get a little bit off topic with you, and I know we have not discussed this, but I'd love to hear your reaction to this, because what I'm seeing, you deal with students a lot, and I used to love teaching in the formal environment. I haven't done it in many, many, many years, but we have a lot of texting going on. The students will text to each other, probably preferential to talking on the phone. And they use acronyms, and they use word substitutes. For example, IDK substitute.
I don't know.
Right. The number 9, just the number 9 means parents. A parent is watching. The number 4 is substituted for the word FOR. 2MI. The 3 characters, the number 2, M, and I, means too much information. 2EZ means too easy, and the number 2 has been substituted for the word to. So those as examples. Are you finding in your classroom activities, when your students are writing narratives, if they're writing formal written answers in test essay-type questions, are they substituting acronyms, abbreviations, and substitutions for the real words? And if so, is it affecting their thinking process?
I do. To answer the question, yes. We have a documentation packet that they have to complete when they care for a patient in the hospital setting. And just in the last clinical rotation, I've had about 3 of my students use some of those abbreviations in their formal paperwork they have to turn in for me. And, of course, those actions got corrected, right? So, yes, I do see that permeating. It's almost as culturally they've accepted that that's the norm, and we have to re-educate them that that's not appropriate in the context of the clinical environment. And even though your paperwork is turned to me in the academic environment, that's still a more formal system than texting your friends in a text message. But I will also tell you that the dynamic of text messaging, my husband used to get irritated with me because, I came into the text generation begrudgingly, sort of, but I came to understand that as a parent, that is the communication platform that appears to be the preferred choice of my children's generation. And I think my oldest daughter, who is 32 now, about, 6 or 7 years ago, I did my first text to her, and she was just like, I couldn't believe that I texted her. But I came to understand that if I want to have meaningful, and I hate to call text messaging meaningful, but that is the way that their generation views that. If I want to have meaningful communications with my children, texting is, in their opinion, in their view, a more efficient way to do that. And lo and behold, my husband is coming around now. He used to say, well, if they're texting you, their phone's in their hand, just pick up and call them. And I said, that is not their if they wanted to talk to me, they would have called me. So, and I find it's an interesting expectation that the students are given the faculty person's cell phone number so that they can text their instructors.
Yeah, my concern is we might get to the point with a text coming out like, yo, shoot him up with 2 cc's of. I mean...
We will talk about social media, though, and education when we come back, if I can.
Oh, you bet. You bet. Dr. Julie Penick, Healthcare.com, P-E-N-I-C-K, Healthcare.com. She's on the website, page 1, under instructors. Yo, DGA, ATM, B2W, B9. We're talking about social media. So DGA is don't go anywhere. ATM is at the moment. B2W is back to work. B9, the boss is watching. Dr. Julie Penick is with us. I couldn't help it. Dr. Julie Penick's with us. Social media. Please share with us your thoughts on social media.
Well, we're talking about the whole cultural acclimen that we're seeing stimulated by the Gen Ys, right? The whole texting thing and the not blessing, but the acknowledgement that it's appropriate for students to have a faculty person's cell phone number for communications. That never happened when I was in school. Mm-hmm. Of course, I am older than dirt, but we have seen, I've seen it in professional journals, and we have seen elements of it here in our local market, where students are so used to social media platforms that after they've had clinical experiences, which, those occur in a healthcare facility where HIPAA laws apply, right? Students will post comments, not patient identifying by name, but they may post comments about the facility they were at and the nature of the patient that they took care of. And both locally and across the nation, students have fallen victim to sharing too much information and found themselves expelled from programs and at risk for being disciplined for violations of the Health Information Portability Act, the HIPAA laws.
Yeah.
And so, even if you don't use a name, if you're out there on Facebook and you say, oh, well, I worked at such and such hospital today and I was on this floor with these type patients and I took care of patient with all things. If a patient's family member sees that description and knows it's their family member, you've given enough information to violate HIPAA privacy policies, right? Mm-hmm. And so it has become a challenge, and I also understand where faculty people who may be communicating elements of clinical assignments through social media have fallen victim to not what we would consider a direct violation of HIPAA, but, you might be assigned to a patient at this facility in this room. Absolutely inappropriate and gives the students the wrong message. So we have to be very careful about approaching education with this media, social media, media-entrenched generation of students.
And what happens if that social media is not available? Let's say they can't receive the texts. Is there a plan B where they get their assignment communicated in a different way so they actually can continue? Or is medicine now and treatment now dependent on social media?
Well, I never thought I would see the day where a patient would have access to their healthcare professional through what they call an e-visit, which is just a email communication or a social network platform communication or an intranet, a system-wide communication. I never thought I would see the day. I never thought that healthcare professionals would allow that level of intrusion, because those are outside of scheduled time to see patients, right? Mm-hmm. And so they're in addition to their current workload. And for many years, there were no codes to be reimbursed for that time. So that's like, unreimbursed professional services. I am happy to say now there are billing codes, procedure codes that go along with e-visits. But in the early days of those code utilizations, third-party payers were not interested in paying for those services. Now, you can't go into a lawyer's office and expect him not to bill you for an email communication from him or her.
You're absolutely right. And but Dr. Pennock, I would resist having an e-visit. I would rather actually have my health care provider look me face to face and see all the nuances that are necessary for providing treatment.
One day when I'm back, Vince, we need to talk about then the big push toward distance monitoring and assessing patients through telemedicine programs and how that's supposed to meet the need for increased access.
Let's do that, Dr. Pennock. PennockHealthcare.com. Class above all, honesty and integrity. What happens next?